Mayor, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. Great. We appreciate you joining us here. It's been a couple of weeks for you and your team, and for the state of Minnesota has been in the crosshairs of a lot of conversation nationally. If you had to pick one word to describe the last couple of weeks, what would that be?
Heavy. It's been heavy for the constituents that we have that love Minneapolis. It's been especially heavy for our Somali communities, for immigrants that have decided to make Minneapolis home and are now clearly the target of a Trump administration that doesn't seem to care about the wonderful benefit that they provide to our city in terms of the economy, the culture. These are people that are baked into the very fabric that make Minneapolis, Minneapolis, and right now they're under attack, and the bottom line is we got to stand up for them.
Yeah, the weight of the nation stare right now definitely heavy. I'm curious, do you care what other people think of Minneapolis?
Of course. And I also care about what Minneapolis residents think of Minneapolis. It's, of course, part of my job to make sure that people understand how extraordinary this city is, not just locally, but around the world. And when you have a president of the United States that puts a target on the back of the 435,000 people that call Minneapolis home, I have a job to do. And look, I am someone that didn't grow up in Minneapolis. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm not here by default. I'm here because it is an incredible city. I first came to Minneapolis to run the Twin Cities Marathon. And around mile 15 or so, I remember having a conversation with the guy next to me, and he's like, this is this beautiful city. And I thought to myself, it is. This is like a city in a park. This is a special place. And I moved across the country the day after graduating law school to make the best city in the world my home. And I still believe that today.
There is, this perception out there, and I know you've seen it, and I don't know if you read the comments or not, but the perception is that, and perception can be reality for a lot of people, that people don't want to come to Minneapolis. They don't want to spend their money in Minneapolis. They believe, the words hellhole have been used a lot. I know you know that. We know you don't feel that way, but how do you get to the people who feel that way? Because a lot of them do believe in what President Trump is doing.
The people that are saying that, for the most part, have not been to Minneapolis in a very long time. Because you don't need to take my word for it. Look at the data. We're setting records with the number of people that are coming downtown and across our city to attend events. We're seeing more of an entertainment hub where people are coming from all over Minnesota and even all over the country to experience what Minneapolis has to offer. And whether that's a play, a performance, a Timberwolves basketball game, it doesn't matter. People are coming here to check out the extraordinary place that we have to offer. And, they're not finding a hellhole. What they are finding is a beautiful city in a park. What they are finding is a vibrant atmosphere where we have a whole lot of assets all in one place. And, Minneapolis is very much on the rise. Again, you don't need to take my word for it. Look at the data. We hit records in the numbers of hotel occupancy this last fall. We've hit records in the numbers of people that are coming downtown for reasons other than to work. And I think those numbers speak for themselves.
Mayor, I'm curious how you respond to people who say, we think that you just maybe turn a blind eye to certain problems because, we've heard you're more interested in protecting people's feelings rather than upholding the law. What specifically, how do you respond to that?
I guess I would ask specifically what they're talking about.
I think the sort of, when you came out to sort of immediately, as soon as the Trump administration made those statements last week, immediately came to the defense of the Somali community. And I think there were people who were saying, well, we understand that, but also in the same breath, will you recognize some of the problems? And when they say blind eye, I think that's what they're alluding to.
Well, let me just do this all in one breath. The people that committed the fraud should be held accountable. The people that committed the fraud should get charged, be prosecuted, and go to jail. as individuals. They should go to jail as individuals, not as a community. In America, the way this works is that you see the benefit of your own merit, you see the detriment of your own flaws. You don't get held accountable for what somebody else in your community did. That person gets held accountable. And so that's not a position that I have that should be unique. That is the United States Constitution. That is simple morality. That is the right thing to do. And so will I stick up for the Somali community that we love, that are our neighbors, that, I mean, just for me personally, it's my banker, it's our babysitter, it's the guy that is my security detail. You're damn right I'll stick up for them because they haven't done anything wrong. And will I say very clearly that the people that are accountable for the fraud that stole millions from kids and the food that would have fed them, that stole millions from housing stability, yeah, we should all also be speaking with one accord there. They commit fraud, they get prosecuted, and they go to jail. Both of those things can be true at the same time, and I don't think it should be that hard of a needle to thread.
One of the most interesting reactions that I know we saw here was after the president's comments. There were some members of the Somali community here in Minnesota who actually invited the president to Minneapolis. They said put names to faces, instead of sort of blanket statements was the way that they put it. Is there a world in which you may be able to, draw and keep your boundaries around your values and also look for some common ground with people like the president?
There's always room to find common ground. I think that should be a part of the core job as mayor or any other politician in this country. You try to find areas where you can work together, not to mention you try to provide people that maybe haven't spent a significant time in Minneapolis the truth. You show them this beautiful city. You show them that in our city, the diversity itself is diverse. We've got people from 1,000 different backgrounds and mentalities, and they really love Minneapolis. They love the United States. In the case of the Somali community, we're talking about proud American citizens that have moved here to start a life, run with a great idea, become entrepreneurs, and have definitively benefited our city in beautiful ways. I would love to show anybody and everybody that wants to check out Minneapolis. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is taking people on a tour and showing them the incredible Stone Arch Bridge, showing them a Somali mall and what that's all about. Taking them to one of our favorite joints that's over on, North Loop or on the north side, whatever it may be. It's a special place, and if you've been here, if you've spent time here, you recognize that.
Okay. We got just a couple of minutes left here, Mayor, before we need to let you go. City Council is taking up a separation ordinance for city employees. We're talking a lot about the separation of local authorities and federal law enforcement. I want to just ask you briefly about, there was an ICE operation that sort of went sideways in St. Paul that I know you know about a couple of weeks ago. Can you just clarify for us, crowd control, because that's something that could affect a lot more people. What does that look like in the city of Minneapolis? And I know it's a broad term, but what can you tell us?
It is a broad term, and obviously any incident will depend on the individual facts of what is happening in that moment. Here's the bottom line. We in Minneapolis do not cooperate or coordinate with federal agencies around immigration enforcement work. We do work with them on narcotics busts. We do work with them to try to catch the perpetrators of violent gun crimes. That's part of the job. But we do not coordinate with them on immigration enforcement. And the presence of ICE agents doesn't make our police not police. They still have a job to do. They gotta make sure that people are safe. They gotta protect people from bodily injury. They gotta prevent there from being destruction of property. And so when there is a violation of law in that sense from anybody, it's our police's job to step up and to make sure that things are safe and secure. So, in that instance, you could see a presence of Minneapolis police that are on or around the scene as one of these federal actions is taking place. The reason is because they got to keep people safe. They may have to escort an ambulance to get to somebody that's injured. They may need to protect a business that is being looted. Maybe they need to protect somebody that is being injured in that moment. I mean, these are things that the police officers have to do when somebody calls 911, and we can't abdicate our responsibility to keep people safe simply because there is a presence of ICE.
Mayor, my last question, is this the Minneapolis you envisioned when you first decided to run for mayor?
I think there's a ton of stuff that has happened over the last 5 years that none of us have envisioned. I mean, I don't think I said the word pandemic a single time when I first ran for office. Nobody could have predicted the confluence of different issues and crises that came across our plate. And I often talk about, there was a moment, 5 years ago, more than that now, where I was sitting at this desk, not this one, but a different one. And I had a pen in one hand, and I was about to sign the very first emergency declaration that would essentially shut down the city during COVID-19. And in my other hand, I had a cell phone, and I was FaceTiming with my wife, who was in the hospital because she was getting the ultrasound. And so I was essentially looking at my future kid in one hand, most important thing in my entire life, and then the most important thing in my public life, about to sign this emergency declaration. I thought that was the big moment. And then the pandemic got worse, and George Floyd was murdered. The subsequent unrest, a city budget crisis that required us to pass 5 or 6 budgets in the past we would normally pass 2. And so did I expect doing that? No, of course not. Are these the circumstances that you envision and you've got this prescient ability to be able to predict what's next? Of course not. But we are an incredible city. We've got knocked down 7 times. We get back up 8. We have been resilient and strong. I love this job. I'm honored and proud to be the mayor of what I know to be the greatest city in the entire world. And I'm looking forward to 4 more years here of partnering with great people in this city and beyond. Whether they agree with me or they disagree with me, let's have kind of that common thread of optimism where we can get some good stuff done that'll help people.
All right, Mayor, thanks for your time today. 10 minutes is never enough, so hopefully we can have you on again. And, there's a lot to cover here, so thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.